Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, I'm Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. It's definitely time to get excited because I just got back from Gamescom and I am absolutely blown away by some of the demos that I witnessed. But that's actually just the tip of the iceberg because I've also seen the XR community come together like never before, and it looks like this industry and the people in it are finally getting the recognition they deserve. Now please bear with me a little bit guys, my voice is kind of out and I'm definitely jet lagged as I just landed a few minutes ago, but I was so pumped to talk about this stuff that I wasn't going to wait. No naps for me. Let's just get straight to it. There are, of course, links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but I'm going to be talking about everything that I witnessed. First up, just a huge shout out to people like Jamie Feltham, Beyond Frames, Impact Reality, and all the other studios that came out and made the home of XR, which was one gigantic mega booth, putting all the games and people we love in one place. Honestly, this was a huge highlight for me, just to walk around in a nice little circle and just see celebrity, VR celebrity after VR celebrity, be shaking hands and just hearing random people say, "Hey, Mateo," and meeting so many developers back to back, not having to run across a giant, conference to try and find people. Nope. Pretty much everyone was in one spot and it was fantastic. So everybody worked on that who contributed, put this together. Huge thank you. Guys, if you've never been to Gamescom and you're a VR fan, oh my God, it's a wet dream. But I'm sure you don't want to hear me go on and on about that stuff, and you just want to get to the juicy bits, which are the games. I'll just start with the bad news real fast. I can't talk about Batman just yet. An entire video on Arkham Shadow will be coming out very soon, I promise, so unfortunately you gotta wait a little bit longer. Also, anything about Metro Awakening and Arizona Sunshine Remake is also still embargoed, which I'm sure are other games you definitely want to hear about, but I do unfortunately need to follow the rules, but that's okay because there's plenty of other amazing stuff to talk about. First up, there was another new demo for Skydance's Behemoth. Now, I already did a video on that previous demo, and I'll link that above if you're looking for a lot more information, but I will say that this new demo basically solidified the fact that this fantasy action physics-based fighting game is all about those badass behemoth fights. It was a new monstrosity for you to battle against, and this guy was much bigger than the last one. I'm even more pumped for this game now. It's got immersive storytelling, fantastic combat, a nice gritty world to explore, and unlike their previous title, Saints and Sinners, this time you'll truly feel empowered with some badass special abilities. But now I want to jump over to a title that I definitely wasn't expecting much from, and was actually the first game I demoed at Gamescom, and that was Trombone Champ. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Why on earth would Flat the VR Studios start off as their first game being Trombone Champ? And that's what I want to get into. Now I'll tell you about the game in just a second, but I really rather talk about, the impact that Flat the VR Studios can have. I did a full video on this. If you want to check that out, I'll post that too. But basically, Trombone Champ is a game that's already loved on Steam. It has overwhelmingly positive reviews. So we know there's something there. There's something addictive about it, something that people want to get into and keep playing it. It's also the type of title that needs a decent amount of work to go over well in VR. It's not like a shooter where you basically just need, 6-stop controls and get at it. This is really different. And they've done a ton of work to kind of remaster this for VR. And I will say, I went into it and it didn't feel like a flat conversion. This felt like a built from the ground up VR game. So that's what Flat the VR Studios is trying to show off that they know how to do. It's something they excel at. And if they prove this to people with a successful title, a title that's hard to convert, some of the bigger studios are going to be a lot more likely to work with them. Now, when it comes to Trombone Champ, it's a rhythm game. It's not really my style. It was fun. I definitely had fun playing it, and there's definitely an audience for this. Like I said, overwhelmingly positive on Steam, the flat version, and the VR version, I think, I don't know. I never played the original one, but it feels like an amazing conversion because it feels like a built from the ground up VR game. So very good choice in my opinion. I know some people disagree. They're like, well, they show Half-Life in their trailer. Yeah, I get you, but slow your roll. Now, also, they are working on a bunch of other stuff, but unfortunately, I can't share any of that right now. There's some stuff that's still embargoed that they're working on. They're keeping under wraps, and it's even more exciting, trust me. Well, let's move on to the next title I checked out, which was Action Hero. Action Hero is super simple to explain. This is one-to-one the mechanics from Super Hot. The bad guys only move when you move. There's multiple different scenes where enemies try to kill you, and if you die at any time, you have to completely start over. Now, what actually sets this game apart is it takes place inside of an action hero movie. So not only are you going to have a bunch of different enemies trying to kill you, but there'll also be things like boulders falling from the sky that you need to dodge, or just any of your typical action hero type of stunt going on. The first one I got to play through was basically Indiana Jones. Kill the enemies, watch out for guys chasing you on motorbikes. I had to duck under a boulder at one point, basically everything you would expect. And just a cool little touch in there, like anytime you die, you'll hear a director in the background be like, cut, retake. So they really keep that theme going throughout the entire gameplay. Now there's going to be 5 different action movies in total, and while they wouldn't tell me what exactly they were, I know they're going to run the gambit of everything from like Terminator to Aliens or, anything in between. So while this game is still pretty much on the casual side, I gotta say it was an absolute blast to play. I loved it, and if you enjoyed Superhot, you'll probably like this even more. Now, I also once again hung out with Maze Theory, the studio behind Peaky Blinders, The King's Ransom, and most recently their mixed reality puzzle game, The Infinite Inside. And while unfortunately they weren't showing off anything new, I did get a nice little bit of information from them. First off, the majority of their team has been hard at work on another title that's also apparently from another major IP, and this time it is not a British one. All they would tell me is it's American, and I would definitely recognize it, so that could be anything. And I also found out that the Infinite Inside was basically a little side project for them that only 6 members of their team actually worked on. So I'm really looking forward to whatever it is that they're going to pump out next. Now, next up, after a bunch of BSing with my buddy Proper D, I got to check out Combat Waffle's 2 new games. That studio is continuing to try and fill the void of genres that just don't exist in VR yet. So their first game, Silent North, is basically going to be a DayZ. The demo they showed off was a very early build, and obviously since it's a game that revolves around multiplayer and there was no multiplayer available, there really wasn't too much to experience in this demo. So I basically just got a feel of what they're going for, and yes, it's DayZ in VR, and they said they want their servers to have like 40 or maybe more players, so that's pretty exciting to hear. We don't see that often in VR at all. Now, their next title, Grim, is basically Rust on Mars in VR. That's it. It basically has all the same building mechanics, PvP and PvE, and you'll spend a nice chunk of time gathering resources and building whatever you want. Honestly, it's made to be extremely close to Rust, but what sets this game apart is it takes place in space. You have limited oxygen, so that's a resource that you have to refill or you'll die. And there's also multiple biodomes built throughout the world, which you do want to think of them as safe havens, because inside there's unlimited oxygen, and it's a great place to find food and other resources, but it's also an ideal place for other players to kill you and take all of your goods. But honestly, if you've been looking for a game like Rust in VR, this is the title. It's going to be solid. Now, another experience that was both solid and still pretty much in early development was The Last Stand. This is from Soul Assembly, the same studio that gave us Drop Dead, and The Last Stand basically takes their home invasion mixed reality mode and turns it into a PvP game. You'll be in your own personal space, defending it against zombies, just like your opponent who's playing across the internet. So not only will you have to continually defend yourself, but the real goal is to shoot down your opponent. Honestly, it's a truly amazing experience, and they're definitely incorporating some really new stuff in there, like Meta's full body tracking SDK, and the room scale setup will also allow you to use your own furniture as fortifications that you could hide behind. Ultimately, the experience was extremely well done. The only issue I had was this early build is a bit glitchy, but the potential is definitely there, and they don't need to rush this one out. Now, an even cooler mixed reality experience is this title I tried from Cyborn. You might be familiar with the studio. They made the absolutely stunning Hubris. Well, now they took things in a completely different direction and made Wall Town Wonders. It's honestly the first title that made me go, wow, mixed reality can truly be something. It's a world building game, or crafting style game, but it's done in mixed reality, and you basically build along your wall. And you'll meet little characters, and they'll jump down into your hand and like navigate you around your room, be like, I see something over there, and they'll be pointing, and they'll point to like your piece of furniture and jump off and find something there. It's really interesting. Like, there's nothing like it. And it had my mind spinning, because not only is it mixed reality that looked really good, we know Cyborn, ups the graphics to the max, but not only did it look really good, it just fit into the wall perfectly, and it had me thinking, do you know what I want to play? I want to play Lemmings just like this. I want the Lemmings to be walking across my wall, falling off my furniture and dying, and I got to set up stuff to save them. Also, this made me think, hey, you can actually pull off an RTS mixed reality game. It wouldn't be quite like RTS that we played with micromanagement. would kind of be like, you know, setting up all little defenses around your house and watching them battle across your living room. That's what I was thinking. This honestly was the first game to truly prove mixed reality to me, like straight mixed reality. I was like, this is crazy. I was blown away. It was very cute, you know, probably not my type of title, but if you're into, you know, the world building games, the sim type games, there's something there. It was really cute and honestly stunning for a mixed reality title. So that blew me away. I couldn't believe it. And they just had a lot of cool mechanics. You're flying a plane around your room with your hand. You have like a wind fan and you're using that to kind of like blow dust across your room to look for something hidden. It was done well. I was impressed. Now the next title was Ember Souls, which was basically a mix of Blade and Sorcery and the Prince of Persia. So it switches between puzzles, combat, and parkour. As it stands right now, I felt they had a very solid foundation. The game looked good, ran well, but obviously it's really hard not to compare it to other titles like Asgard's Wrath 2 and Blade and Sorcery, which of course are top tier, and I will say Ember Souls is just not quite those games. But if you are a huge fan of games like that and you're looking for something new, this is a solid title to explore. I did leave the developers with some feedback on how they could punch it up a little bit, and I was happy to hear that most of my recommendations were already things that they're working on or were just not complete in the build I was currently playing. But overall, it is packing a lengthy campaign, an overall style that we haven't experienced before, and maybe it'll also deliver a compelling story, but that one I don't know about because it's one of the aspects I didn't get to see. But speaking of storylines, I really found myself getting into Escaping Wonderland. This is an Alice in Wonderland themed journey that's just packed with charm. I was getting a nice little Moss sensation while playing this game, but it's honestly a quite different experience. I did have to stop and mention Moss though, because back in the day, people used to always tell me to play it, and I was just too macho. I was like, I can't play that game. How can I ever relate to a female mouse protagonist, and it's a puzzle parkour game? No thanks. And then I tried it, and I was blown away. So now I have a much more open mind when I try VR experiences, and this was undeniably cute. You'll take on the role of a character named Molly, who's actually returned to Wonderland but has no memory of her previous experience, and you'll meet a whole bunch of zany characters and have to solve some clever puzzles to help her escape back home. Now there's also dialogue options throughout this game where you get to choose Molly's responses, and they said that this is going to culminate in like a deep, truly satisfying ending. So all of your choices are going to add up to something, and it's going to tell a truly compelling story. Now that intrigued me. I didn't really get to experience it. I only played about 20-30 minutes of the game, but I thought it was very charming. If you like games like Moss, you like puzzle games, story games, this is a fun one. And it's also a chill game. It's a VR game where you don't have to jump around and break a sweat. You sit back, you enjoy the world. You could, you know, bring yourself really close in to look at all the characters. When you're solving puzzles or having dialogue, it does bring you into first person, so you get to experience the world up close and personal, which I loved. And yeah, like if you're into that style of game, this one impressed me. Like, again, like my experience with Moss, I was like, yeah, whatever. How am I going to like this? And I walked away loving Quill, thinking of her as one of my favorite all-time VR characters. And I feel like maybe I won't connect to this game quite the same, but others will. Others are truly going to connect to Molly. That's my opinion. Now we're coming up to the two last games that I want to go over, which are both not only much more my style, but also impressed me. The first was Zombie Army VR. Now this is from Rebellion, the same studio that gave us the Sniper Elite series, and they've basically given Zombie Army the same treatment. It's a built from the ground up, new experience set in that world. Overall, the game is exactly what I expected. It's just like Zombie Army, but it's also in VR. It has very similar mechanics to Sniper Elite, but it does feel a bit more refined, and there's just a lot more action. There's none of that, you know, stealth stuff. It still has the awesome X-ray kill cam when you sniper shoot somebody, but now you could also play it in co-op, and you just go in with a buddy and mow down tons of zombies. Brand new storyline too, but it's also set in the same world. So yes, everything I expected, everything I wanted, ran well. Their game was completely done. Beginning to end, the whole game was there, but they just said, oh, try this. And I was just blasting through some stuff, having a nice chat. I'm impressed. It's exactly what I expected. I don't think it's going to be a AAA title, a top tier title, but it's going to be like a B+ title. Super fun with a friend, and it's a great time. You know, mowing down zombies in VR never gets old. I don't care what anybody says. So, Zombie Army VR, near the top of the list, but probably the game that impressed me even more was a title that I didn't even hear of called Memorium. Now, this is from Patient 8, the studio that gave us the absolutely fantastic Return to Rapture mod for Half-Life Alyx. If you haven't tried it, guys, it's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend it. Download it now if you have Half-Life Alyx. It's just absolutely fantastic. They really, truly rebuilt Rapture inside of Half-Life. It just feels and plays fantastic. But now they're back with Memorium, a game that they're building from the ground up, and it's very reminiscent of something like Doom 3 mixed with Dead Space. It was action-packed. I love the feel. Again, it had a little bit of that older school Doom style that I absolutely love. Those are the type of games I grew up with. The sound and lighting design was absolutely fantastic. And what honestly impressed me the most was the fact that they said, oh yeah, we're still about a year or so out from releasing the game. And what they actually showcased felt 100% polished and looked like it was ready to go right now. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one when we finally get our hands on it. Oh, we got to pump the brakes for 1 second. I forgot to mention, I also finally got to try Bootstrap Island. It's a badass survival title. Doesn't hold your hands. It's cutthroat. But honestly, the graphics are great. The attention to details there. Really cool mechanics. People told me it was good, that I had to try it. I never got around to it. And they were there at Gamescom. So I was like, heck yeah, I want to try. And yeah, it's everything people said it was. I was definitely impressed. Survival, not my genre of choice, but I see how people could love this. It reminded me a lot like The Forest, just set in a different era. So that's an easy recommendation if you're on PCVR and you're looking for a survival game. Now that was today's video, guys. And as you could see, I'm really pumped. And these were the smaller titles. Remember, the bigger titles like Metro, Batman. Some of those games are still under embargo and I can't talk about them yet. So there's something for everybody here. Honestly, all of these demos were really impressive, from the casual games to the horror games, mixed reality. I couldn't believe it. And VR felt like it was finally getting its day in the sun. Like, it had this huge booth. Everyone there is so positive. The communities, the developers, the fans that came by, it's absolutely incredible. It feels like VR is growing. It feels like everyone in the industry is so passionate and cares, myself included. Like, honestly, this was my first conference with VR people. I go to PAX East, which has no VR presence. So this is like my first real conference with a lot of people, and it was just amazing. I did meet a couple of other creators at a few other events here and there, but this was definitely the biggest one, and it blew my mind. It was so great, guys. And you know what? I wore this shirt because, not sponsored or anything, I just wanted to give a nice little shout out to TrackCraft. Unfortunately, TrackCraft didn't get into the Home of XR booth. They were a little bit too late. So they were like just a mile away in a little corner somewhere, and I felt bad for them. And they actually have a great mixed reality game where you build tracks and race your cars on them, and I'm going to showcase that in an upcoming future. So that's why I wore the shirt, wanted to showcase it, because I think they deserve some respect too, and I just felt bad that they weren't in the booth with everybody else. They did give me a nice Czech beer. It was delicious, so thank you guys. Thanks everybody. I hope you guys are pumped for VR just like me. More great stuff to come. Like I said, Batman soon. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, thumbs up. If you're new here, consider subscribing. As always, I'll see you guys next time, and hopefully my voice is doing a little bit better then. All right.